Hey, Mike, what'd you do if the lady in your life didn't like GK Chesterton?
Well, that could be a no deal.
Little barbershop quartet?
That day in September when I found myself shocked beyond belief.
Nice.
My orthodoxy baby crushed my heart like crazy when she revealed that she doesn't like Gilbert Keith. Goodbye, my heretical no good gal. Goodbye, unchestertonian girl. I can't believe
Unchestertonian.
that you were reading Shaw. What's wrong with the world? I cried and I cried when I showed you a leaf.
Good insert there. Like it.
Struck with wonder at it. That was the day I just had to leave. So long, sayonara, I've had it.
Impressive.
You're listening to another episode of Chesterton's Gateway with Ethan, Nicolle and Michael Grumbine and me, AI Chesterton. And let's face it, if you find a woman who reads my work, hold on to
that.
Excellent. Man, the inside jokes are so deep.
I know.
On this.
That was the one.
There's
He
like
calls her
eight people in this world that will get our jokes.
I know. He said, you're probably just a cheese and crack whore.
Oh, no.
I couldn't resist it. Highly inappropriate for a Catholic podcast. No, I'm not Catholic either, but
yeah. Well,
but yeah, I couldn't help it. I once the joke hit me. So when I was looking at famous barbershop quartet songs, there's a song called "Goodbye, My Coney Island Babe."
Yep, I've heard it.
It's just like finding out that your woman is like not great, and you're saying goodbye to her.
Yep.
So I went with "Goodbye, My Unchestertonian Gal."
That's awesome.
All right, we're on part 3 of what book were we reading? Orthodoxy.
We are reading Orthodoxy.
We are in the Maniac, the first chapter.
Part 3 of the Maniac, in fact.
So here we go. We're diving back in. Buckle your chester belts, boys.
Click.
And it must be remembered that the most purely practical science does take this view of mental evil. It does not seek to argue with it like a heresy, but simply to snap it like a spell. Neither modern science nor ancient religion believes in complete free thought. Theology rebukes certain thoughts by calling them blasphemous. Science rebukes certain thoughts by calling them morbid. For example, some religious societies discouraged men more or less from thinking about sex. The New Scientific Society definitely discourages men from thinking about death. It is a fact, but it is considered a morbid fact. And in dealing with those whose morbidity has a touch of mania, modern science cares far less for pure logic than a dancing dervish. In these cases, it is not enough that the unhappy man should desire truth. He must desire health. Nothing can save him but a blind hunger for normality, like that of a beast. A man cannot think himself out of mental evil, for it is actually the organ of thought that has become diseased, ungovernable, and as it were independent. He can only be saved by will or faith. The moment his mere reason moves, it moves in the old circular rut. He will go round and round his logical circle, just as a man in a third-class carriage on the inner circle will go round and round the inner circle unless he performs the voluntary, vigorous, and mystical act of getting out at Gower Street. Decision is the whole business here. A door must be shut forever. Every remedy is a desperate remedy. Every cure is a miraculous cure. Curing a madman is not arguing with a philosopher. It is casting out a devil. And however quietly doctors and psychologists may go to work in the matter, their attitude is profoundly intolerant as Bloody Mary. Their attitude is really this, that the man must stop thinking if he is to go on living. Their counsel is one of intellectual amputation. If thy head offend thee, cut it off. For it is better not merely to enter the kingdom of heaven as a child, but to enter it as an imbecile, rather than with your whole intellect to be cast into hell or into Hanwell.
All right.
All right. We got a lot going on in this
Yeah,
paragraph.
there's a lot going into that. Maybe I should have broken it up. And even a refresher on the most purely practical science does take this view of mental evil. Do you remember what he's referring to?
So this is from our last one. So we ended last time with one of the coolest parts of this chapter. I really like it, where Chesterton says the only way to argue with somebody who has, or to talk to someone, not argue with someone who has a paranoid theory that he's the King of England or he's Jesus Christ, is to say, well, maybe you are, but if you are in fact God, and ruler of the world, then what a small world it must be. What a little heaven you must inhabit with angels no bigger than butterflies. So it's basically, it's pointing out, it's not arguing against his logic. It's just saying, it's trying to expand the circle. He's the maniac has a tiny little circle that everything fits. He fits the world into this tiny frame. And so Chesterton here at the beginning is pointing out that actually science does something of the same thing, at least at certain times. And he's talking about science in his time, but it in the psychological sciences, it's somewhat true still nowadays. And that is that they don't try to argue with people that are mentally ill. Like that's not the way. That's not what you do. You simply try to shift their thinking to something else, or expand their mind through common sense and proper experience. So because in fact, when a person is mentally ill, when a person is a maniac, it is the organ of thought itself, as Chesterton says, that's broken. So you can't, if the organ of thought's broken, you're not going to get to the truth, or have them get to the truth by having their organ of thought, their mind, run on a normal path. You have to sort of jump the lanes, so to speak, to use a bowling alley analogy. You got to get out of the framework that they've been in. So there's a lot of things going on here on that. This reference to morbidity, this was a thing that was made really huge by Sigmund Freud. He posited that basically we as human beings we're obsessed with death and with life, and he thought we had two spirits in us: the Thanatos, the spirit of morbidity that thought about death, and which, by the way, yes, for those modern listeners, yes, the character, the Marvel character Thanos that wants to kill everyone he is based on Freud's spirit of death, Thanatos, and then the spirit of life, which, because Freud's obsessed with sex, he thought was Eros. Now, there is a spirit of Eros. Eros is sexual desire, but for Freud, that was everything. Like it was a fight between Eros and Thanatos, and so he himself was obsessed with death. After Freud, psychological scientists and people that treated mentally ill started to say, well, look, actually, we don't want people thinking about death. We want to shift their mindset away from it. And in a way, Freud himself was kind of a cautionary tale, because he became obsessed with death at the end of his life as well. And might have, in fact, orchestrated his own suicide because of his obsession with death. Anyway, so at the time Chesterton's writing this in the early 1900s, that was cutting edge psychological treatment, was get people to stop thinking morbidly, to stop obsessing about the thing, that whatever they're obsessed about, and get them to jump the track.
Is this anywhere close to when they're doing scrambling people's brains up with electricity? What's the word for that?
Yeah, it is actually. Actually, there's a slight reference to something like that when he talks about an imbecile at the end of the paragraph. He says it's, if thy hand offend thee, cut it off, for it is better not merely to enter the kingdom of heaven as a child, but to enter it as an imbecile. So an imbecile is a technical term. It means somebody with an IQ. Someone on the internet's gonna fact check me, but I think an imbecile is like 40 IQ. Idiot is 30 IQ, and anyway, there were a bunch of
moron.
Yeah, moron. There you go. Moron's 50 IQ, or maybe 70. And anyway, the point is that when you did damage to your brain, like cutting part of your head off, which was part of the treatment, like they would lobotomize people. Like this is what they would turn people into imbeciles by lobotomizing parts of their brain, and that's what he's referring to there.
Right.
So, and then the reference to the inner circle, that's the whole jumping the track thing I was using with the bowling alley boundary. But for the English, it's the roundabout. You know, they're little traffic circles, and the inner circles is the lane on the smallest lane on the very inside of the circle that you could once you get in
like
it.
A multi-lane roundabout. Huh?
Oh yeah. Well, that's what. So in America we do single lanes mostly. If we ever do roundabouts, they're more like stop signs. In England, there's roundabouts that are 4 lanes, 5 lanes sometimes. And so if you get caught in that inner circle, it is appropriately for Chesterton. It's the smallest circle, so you're just and there's no way out. You just go round and round. In order to get out, you just have to make a leap of faith and just like sort of pull yourself out across the lanes and get off at well, he's Gower Street. I don't know if that's a historical reference of any kind, other than probably there's a Gower Street in London or something that's famous for its large roundabout. But and
so that's Bloody Mary. That's the lady that you say 3 times into the mirror at night.
Yeah. So this is back to the English's obsession with Mary, Queen of Scots. So this is time. This is 16th century Bloody Mary, and she's the English can't stand her because she's a Catholic queen and kills Protestants. They very carefully avoid talking about Elizabeth I, who was at the same time who actually had Mary executed, who killed more Catholics than Mary killed Protestants. But no one ever mentions that part. So anyway, Bloody Mary's a kind of curse in England.
Gotcha. All right, we'll keep it going.
Such is the madman of experience. He is commonly a reasoner, frequently a successful reasoner. Doubtless he could be vanquished in mere reason, and the case against him put logically, but it can be put much more precisely in more general and even aesthetic terms. He is in the clean and well-lit prison of one idea. He is sharpened to one painful point. He is without healthy hesitation and healthy complexity. Now, as I explain in the introduction, I have determined in these early chapters to give not so much a diagram of a doctrine as some pictures of a point of view. And I have described at length my vision of the maniac for this reason, that just as I am affected by the maniac, so I am affected by most modern thinkers. That unmistakable mood or note that I hear from Hanwell, I hear also from half the chairs of science and seats of learning today, and most of the mad doctors are mad doctors in more senses than one. They all have exactly that combination we have noted, the combination of an expansive and exhaustive reason with a contracted common sense. They are universal only in the sense that they take one thin explanation and carry it very far. But a pattern can stretch forever and still be a small pattern. They see a chessboard white on black, and if the universe is paved with it, it is still white on black. Like the lunatic, they cannot alter their standpoint. They cannot make a mental effort and suddenly see it black on white.
Yeah, this one's great. He's gonna go more into what he means by this, but right now, so now he's been criticizing people that are literally mental patients and how it's not that they think too little or it's that they think too much in a very small circle. They have one idea that they that their mind fixates on. And so he is now going to expand that criticism, not just to Hanwell's patients, but to modern academics and, in his case, modern philosophers of his time, etc., and say, this is the kind of thinking that the latest, greatest science would invite us to embrace. And specifically what he's going to talk about is the philosophy of evolution and materialism, and which led to a lot of bad ideas, even recognized nowadays as bad ideas, like eugenics and stuff. So anyway,
yeah, it's fascinating to hear people talk about evolution that really believe it, and like just kind of they just shove everything into this hole that fits in that hole. You'll hear guests on Joe Rogan, and they start taking animals and deciding just write fan fiction for how the animal came to be. It's like,
well, exactly.
it's
Yeah,
wild.
it is. That's all it is fan fiction. I mean, they don't have any
Right.
evidence for it. They're just they're consumed with the idea that everything came about randomly through mutation and over time like that. And so they have to fill the story in, and so they do so with their imagination, which is no less creative sometimes than the works of Tolkien or C.S. Lewis's Narnia Chronicles. So,
All right, continuing on.
Take first the more obvious case of materialism. As an explanation of the world, materialism has a sort of insane simplicity. It has just the quality of the madman's argument. We have at once the sense of it covering everything and the sense of it leaving everything out. Contemplate some able and sincere materialist, as, for instance, Mr. McCabe, and you will have exactly this unique sensation. He understands everything, and everything does not seem worth understanding. His cosmos may be complete in every rivet and cogwheel, but still his cosmos is smaller than our world. Somehow his scheme, like the lucid scheme of the madman, seems unconscious of the alien energies and the large indifference of the earth. It is not thinking of the real things of the earth, of fighting peoples or proud mothers, or first love or fear upon the sea. The earth is so very large, and the cosmos is so very small. The cosmos is about the smallest hole that a man can hide his head in.
all right, he goes pretty brutally hard at materialism here, and it will become a theme for him because it's because materialism was the new hotness in the world of scientific study in Chesterton's time. No one before that, even the greats of science like Newton or Galileo or anyone else like it, thought, or Bacon or anyone thought, oh, well, we should explain the world in purely material causes. Everyone recognized there was more to the world than purely material causes until Mr. Darwin comes along, and then people take his philosophy and run with it. What we forgot to say from the previous paragraph was, and I like this sentence because it really does encapsulate Chesterton's primary criticism of materialism and all such ideas. He says, they all have exactly the combination we have noted, the combination of an expansive and exhaustive reason with a contracted common sense. Chesterton is, Chesterton is like, he's a nickname, the apostle of common sense in some Christian circles. And this is the problem. You can have a pattern, and your pattern can be perfect internally with itself, but it defies common sense to try to apply a simple pattern like that to the entire universe, which is exactly what materialism does.
Right, now you have to throw all these things out.
Now, you had a good note on McCabe in your book.
Oh, do you have it on you?
Chesterton's Gateway. I do. I can pull it up here, but
thank you, by the way. Sure, I just copied it from Wikipedia.
So he was an English writer, speaker on free thought. He was a former priest, and he then joined the Rationalist Association and became a massive secularist, very popular. He made his money and from criticizing religion in general, but Christianity and Catholicism in specific. The point with him was that he was a hardcore proponent. He and Nicolle, who's in the next paragraph we're going to talk about. Nicolle was a German, McCabe was an Englishman, but they both served to popularize materialism and evolutionary materialism specifically in their different spheres. The coolest fun fact about Joseph McCabe is after this book was written by Chesterton, more than a decade afterwards, he ended up debating Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, author of
on fairies,
Sherlock Holmes, on spiritualism and whether there are real spirits and whether you can commune with him. Arthur Conan Doyle was famously he loved spiritualism. He loved himself a good séance.
Right.
which is hilarious if you think about it, because he's known for giving us like the most rational character in literature, Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
But he loved himself some spiritual.
Apparently he was purely convinced that there was real fairies.
Yes, that's right. That's true.
And he had a photo that somebody gave him, and he believed it was real, even though it was a lot of people.
Oh, I didn't know about the photo. Interesting.
Pretty clearly faked. But he was like, he really believed in fairies. Yeah, it's so fascinating.
Yeah. So I mean, to me, it's funny because in that kind of a debate, you got McCabe on one side, pure evolutionary materialist, and you got Conan Doyle, literature author and spiritualist. It's probably a good idea to take the middle road. So anyway, do you have anything else?
So this last part, he says, it does not think, it's not thinking of the real things of the earth, of fighting people or proud mothers or first love, fear upon the sea. The earth is so very large. The cosmos is so very small. So he's saying the earth as far as not just the dirt and the chemicals, which is all the materials looks at, but the human experience of every single life. I mean, I'll go on walks and I think about like each house I walk by, there's this legacy of stories of a whole family life from like through this and that's just one family. It's just wild to me, the amount of meaning and the amount of legacy and the life experiences and things that this world is made of, and to just kind of throw all that out and go, we're just we're basically like ants on a giant rotting apple crawling around.
Yeah. And what he's doing here that I really like is like you pointed out, he's appealing to the earth versus the cosmos. The cosmos is this idea of like a universe, an ordered universe. We don't have experience of the cosmos. You can say that we live in the cosmos, but we don't experience the cosmos.
It's a big mystery, really. Yeah. Right.
We opine about the cosmos. We sometimes have scientific observations about some of the cosmos, but we don't. That's not a cosmos. Isn't something we experience. We experience the earth and life on the earth, and Chesterton's pointing out. I mean, he's bringing up fighting people's proud mothers, first love, or fear upon the sea. So these high things that we hold very dear as humans, that include children, motherhood, love, fear and courage, things that are high ideals that are worth fighting for. These are the things that materialism has no way to talk about. Famously, someone like Sam Harris, he has nothing to add to a discussion about what justice is, or what honor is, or what truth is, except as some sort of weird materialist matching thing on that last point. It's just they just don't. There are these concepts that we as human beings hold very dear, and materialism utterly fails to touch on them. So so the materialist cosmos is very small. That's what he's saying there.
Yeah, I love the last line. It's the smallest hole a man can hide his head in. It's actually a hiding place for these people.
Yeah. It's a beautiful Chesterton. It's like perfect. Like he's really telling us the truth when he says, "I'm going to present you with a set of pictures to make the argument," and that's a great picture.
All right, let's continue here.
It must be understood that I'm not now discussing the relation of these creeds to truth, but for the present solely their relation to health. Later in the argument, I hope to attack the question of objective verity. Here I speak only of a phenomenon of psychology. I do not for the present attempt to prove to Haeckel that materialism is untrue, any more than I attempted to prove to the man who thought he was Christ that he was laboring under an error. I merely remark here on the fact that both cases have the same kind of completeness and the same kind of incompleteness. You can explain a man's detention at Hanwell by an indifferent public by saying that it is the crucifixion of a God of whom the world is not worthy. The explanation does explain. Similarly, you may explain the order in the universe by saying that all things, even the souls of men, are leaves inevitably unfolding on an utterly unconscious tree, the blind destiny of matter. The explanation does explain, though not, of course, so completely as the madman's. But the point here is that the normal human mind not only objects to both, but feels to both the same objection. Its approximate statement is that if the man in Hanwell is the real God, he is not much of a God. And similarly, if the cosmos of the materialist is the real cosmos, it is not much of a cosmos. The thing is shrunk. The deity is less divine than many men. And according to Haeckel, the whole of life is something much more grey, narrow, and trivial than many separate aspects of it. The parts seem greater than the whole.
Mm.
Yep. This is just putting a point on the previous paragraph.
Yeah.
Here. And I just really like, I know he's expounding on it, what he said previously, but I really like the sentence. But the point here is that the normal human mind not only objects to both, but feels to both the same objection. That's the madman's. It objects to the paranoid theory of the madman in the same way that objects to the materialist cosmos, which is the world is bigger than this. This is a vision.
Right.
Both of these things are visions which your common sense tells you, and your lived experience tells you is so much more than either of those explanations for things. Yeah. And Haeckel, or I keep saying Haeckel. It's my Latin training. It's probably Haeckel.
Haeckel.
AI is probably right. But this is a German materialist. So we went from a English materialist in McCabe to a German evolutionist materialist, and eventually he became a eugenicist. And actually, I think you had a note in your book as well about how he was a strong proponent of scientific racism, which is it's all good because it's scientific, but that's an actual term. Scientific racism was a real movement saying that because all human beings are is the sum of their material parts. Therefore, if you look across different races and you see that they have accomplished different things, some of them recognized by most of humanity as better and some of them worse, then that must mean that those races themselves are evolutionary alleyways, and some of those races are better and some of them are worse. So
some of them fell down a few hills along the way and hit their head a few times.
And so it's not their fault, but they are in fact inferior to other races.
That's what the original name of Charles Darwin's book was, right?
Which one?
The Evolution of the Species.
Full
title, The Origin of the Species. You heard the full title of the book?
Oh, I did back in college, and I've forgotten, and I just refer to it. What is the full title? It's
fascinating because it's amazing how people don't know this. Original full title. On the Origin of the Species by means of natural selection or the preservation of favored races in the struggle for life.
Oops.
Yeah, that's the big book everybody says they all go back to.
What would be fun would be just to refer to it as the struggle for favored races.
Yeah.
Every time.
The preservation of favored races in the struggle for life. The preservation
of favored races, that's right. When Darwin wrote The Preservation of Favored Races, that was man, what a book that was.
Yeah. Hey, if you didn't know that, you got that today. Nothing else out of this podcast. If you did know it, well, reminder.
Well done.
And also, I think it's good to remember that he's saying here, we're so used to thinking in terms of is he saying truth? Is he debating if things are true or not? That's not what he's getting at right now.
No.
He's getting at is this a rich worldview? Are you throwing a bunch of stuff out and kind of focusing on one thing, making it smaller worldview and taking a bunch of stuff for granted? And you're kind of getting that feeling like when a crazy guy goes, every policeman in this town is after me. And you kind of go, that can't be possible. They must be doing other things. That there's things he's leaving out to get to this point, but there's no way you can talk him out of it. And it's kind of like that, you're talking to a crazy materialist.
Yeah, and we have that today. You go on the internet and you find a whole subgenre of videos about how the police are out to get everybody. And,
right. Yeah.
And it's sort of this group psychosis, and it's so. I mean, look, there are police officers that do bad things, and there are police officers that do good things, and
Mm-hmm.
there's no simple explanation. It's like all police officers are this way, all
Yeah.
people of this race, all well the nowadays all Jews are this way, or
Mm-hmm.
all people of this race are this way, and it's thin,
It's
it's
amazing. It's
weak,
amazing
it's
that,
weak.
that nobody at some point goes like characterizing an entire group of people based on like their skin color or whatever it is. Like it's such an old tiger. Like, how are you still doing this? I don't understand.
And it's
Okay.
even like I'm not even like sometimes I don't even object. Like they say they have an example of someone of a group of one type or another behaving badly,
Mm-hmm.
or caught in a scandal where they had some plot or scheme to make a lot of money or to oppress people or whatever. And but upon that example or three, they attach an entire worldview, and
Mm-hmm.
it's so tiresome because it's so clearly like even 4 and 5 year olds, and I've had a few come through my house, know that kind of explanation is insufficient. There's
Mm-hmm.
more to the world than that. So
Right.
anyway,
Yeah, and people want to take pride in and be proud of a thing that they did nothing to earn. So it's attractive to be very proud of your skin color. Because
oh
what do you
right,
do? You were born with it on. Like it's Anyway, continuing on.
For we must remember that the materialist philosophy, whether true or not, is certainly much more limiting than any religion. In one sense, of course, all intelligent ideas are narrow. They cannot be broader than themselves. A Christian is only restricted in the same sense that an atheist is restricted. He cannot think Christianity false and continue to be a Christian. And the atheist cannot think atheism false and continue to be an atheist. But as it happens, there is a very special sense in which materialism has more restrictions than spiritualism. Mr. McCabe thinks me a slave because I'm not allowed to believe in determinism. I think Mr. McCabe a slave because he is not allowed to believe in fairies. But if we examine the two vetoes, we shall see that his is really much more of a pure veto than mine. The Christian is quite free to believe that there is a considerable amount of settled order and inevitable development in the universe. But the materialist is not allowed to admit into his spotless machine the slightest speck of spiritualism or miracle. Poor Mr. McCabe is not allowed to retain even the tiniest imp, though it might be hiding in a pimpernel. The Christian admits that the universe is manifold and even miscellaneous, just as a sane man knows that he is complex. The sane man knows that he has a touch of the beast, a touch of the devil, a touch of the saint, a touch of the citizen. Nay, the really sane man knows that he has a touch of the madman. But the materialist world is quite simple and solid, just as the madman is quite sure he is sane. The materialist is sure that history has been simply and solely a chain of causation, just as the interesting person before mentioned is quite sure that he is simply and solely a chicken. Materialists and madmen never have doubts.
such a great. I love this, especially
Mm-hmm.
the last half of the paragraph, because that is to build on what we were just talking about. That is what I often. I mean, Chesterton says it way better than I do, but you know that's what I end up thinking when I see so many of these paranoid and or conspiracy theory videos and people talking in that mode. I just think a sane man knows he's complex. A sane man knows he has a touch of the beast. Yes, there are people that act
Mm-hmm.
like beasts sometimes. A touch of the devil. Yes, there are people that act actually maliciously. A touch of the saint. Yes, everyone has the potential to act altruistically in a saintly manner. And a touch of the citizen. Everyone can be a good citizen or a dissenting citizen. We're all things like there's we contain multitudes in
Mm-hmm.
and to try to distill everything down to one theory is the mark of true madness.
Right. Yeah, and that's really, I think this is the first time I've read this, and I'm really following the through line as I go along, because it feels like he jumps from one thing to another, and I'm like, what? Now he's talking about this one. I feel like this is the first time really following that the madman is the person who wants to explain the universe. They throw all these things out, and Chesterton is simply saying that he can't throw all these things out, all these things that they're throwing out, and it's oversimplifying the world through this. They find a satisfaction in explaining the world through their little explanation. But if you treasure the real things of life, common sense and family and love and romance and adventures on the sea or whatever it is, and you just, in your soul, you can't just say that's all just a chemical reaction thing, a hallucination created by nature. There has to be, there's a richer explanation, and even if the fact that you probably can, you also know you probably will never be able to explain it, because you also have a sense that it's bigger than you are.
Exactly. Yes. No, exactly. That's what I was thinking when you were saying that. It was, I sometimes suspect that people that come up with like the single unified theory of everything's one conspiracy, everything's one, um, there's one explanation for it all. They get to that place because they're not because they're throwing a thought away. Their mind is working
Right.
and working intensely. But I sometimes get the sense that that's as their mind works to the extent that it possibly can, and then stops and creates the boundary there, and so that they can figure everything out within that circle, whatever size that circle is. But it's never, that circle's never as large as the world. It never actually encompasses what they claim it encompasses. And
like the unknown, you imagine you step out of a cabin into a dark forest, or just the woods or whatever, just an unknown land.
right.
And as far as you know, there's just where children go to get eaten. Or if you go out there with your father, who built this land, he knows this land, he's taking you to show you the land you'll inherit or whatever. I mean, that's the difference between an atheist and a Christian. When they go into this life, there's rich things to be experienced, and there's something that you're inheriting, and there's all this beauty. And for them, it's just this scary world of chaos. And so it's all those things that they throw out. It's so much more comforting to just find that explanation and to kind of stay put.
Yeah, the simple explanation. It's really a good thought. I like where you're going there, because you can see that there is, to carry your example forward, there is, in the darkness outside the house at night in the woods, there is a chaos, and there's mystery. And the line between mystery and chaos is sometimes just the guidance of your father as he walks with you. But they can aptly describe the same realities, but it's what there isn't is just the inside of the cabin, which you refuse to leave because you can see everything inside and describe it because it's well lit.
Right.
And so your claim that the inside of the cabin is the world because you're too scared to go outside. That's where where the problem comes in.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at. Is like the outside is all those things that they throw out, because it's simpler to just explain the whole world as the cabin. Yeah.
Yep.
We're not making as good of analogies as Chesterton here, but we're trying to help.
Hopefully people will
but only that it tracks to, like, I always had a time I knew I loved, we're going to get to his chapter, the ethics of Elfland.
My favorite. Yeah.
But because it's so weird, he argues for believing in fairies and believe and not knowing things. And really, when it comes down to it, he's arguing, like, if he wins the debate here, he's winning the position of, I don't know everything. There's a huge amount of mystery in the world, and you don't know it either. And he's not. Right. He's not taking one system of truth and crushing the other one simply by, like, saying this explains everything better than what yours. He's kind of also doing that, but also he's saying, like he just said, he's saying this is a larger, bigger. In fact, he's going to go further. He's saying it's not a circle. Let's just keep going. We'll let him tell it.
Yeah, no, I think I like where you're going. I'll say something as soon as this is the last paragraph.
This is the last paragraph for this chat, for this time.
For this reading, yep.
Spiritual doctrines do not actually limit the mind, as do materialistic denials. Even if I believe in immortality, I need not think about it. But if I disbelieve in immortality, I must not think about it. In the first case, the road is open, and I can go as far as I like. In the second, the road is shut. But the case is even stronger, and the parallel with madness is yet more strange, for it was our case against the exhaustive and logical theory of the lunatic, that right or wrong, it gradually destroyed his humanity. Now it is the charge against the main deductions of the materialist, that right or wrong, they gradually destroy his humanity. I do not mean only kindness, I mean hope, courage, poetry, initiative, all that is human. For instance, when materialism leads men to complete fatalism, as it generally does, it is quite idle to pretend that it is in any sense a liberating force. It is absurd to say that you're especially advancing freedom when you only use free thought to destroy free will. The determinists come to bind, not to loose. They may well call their law the chain of causation. It is the worst chain that ever fettered a human being. You may use the language of liberty, if you like, about materialistic teaching, but it is obvious that this is just as inapplicable to it as a whole as the same language when applied to a man locked up in a madhouse. You may say, if you like, that the man is free to think himself a poached egg, but it is surely a more massive and important fact that if he is a poached egg, he is not free to eat, drink, sleep, walk, or smoke a cigarette. Similarly, you may say, if you like, that the bold determinist speculator is free to disbelieve in the reality of the will, but it is a much more massive and important fact that he's not free to raise, to curse, to thank, to justify, to urge, to punish, to resist temptations, to incite mobs, to make New Year resolutions, to pardon sinners, to rebuke tyrants, or even to say thank you for the mustard.
And on that note,
thank you for the mustard.
Right.
Yep. So we got this kind of two main points that I see in this paragraph, which is that there's another indictment against the madman and the materialist, is that you don't just have to point out, you look at their theory and go, that's thin. That doesn't explain everything. That's way too small for the world. That's true. It is. Mm-hmm. But furthermore, just like in medical science, when we people go into medical testing and test a new drug, the test of whether the drug works is not only whether it cures or diminishes the symptoms it's supposed to, but also whether it has adverse effects on you. And if it has too many adverse or too much of an adverse effect on someone, it's clear from that it is not medicine, and it's abandoned. And in the same way, the proof is in the pudding. If a viewpoint, a worldview, ends up destroying your humanity, making you bound to a kind of fatalism and lose the joy of life, then in conclusion, you can rightly say this must be a wrong-headed or bad theory of the world. You don't need to point out other insufficiencies, or at least you can, but you don't. But this is another argument against it. So that's his first part about it, and then the other part is he's tackling because materialists, what they did in this, when it came to applying evolutionary science to philosophy and morality, they said, we're freeing you all from the prison of religious thought. That the religions have kept you down.
Yeah, they're the free thinkers, right? That's
we're free to think as we wish. We don't have to do what we're told by our parents and think what we've been told by centuries of religious thought or moral thought or whatever. We're the free thinkers. You all are bound. And Chesterton, as is his wont, uses the binding and loosing analogy, which is a comparison to, it's a reference to Matthew, book of Matthew, chapters 16 and 18, where Christ gives the power to bind and loose to his apostles before he ascends into heaven. So the binding, the idea being those with authority have the power to bind, constrict, or loose. And Chesterton's pointing out the people that say that they're freeing you are actually binding you. They're not actually loosing you, and they're not loosing the intellect upon the world. They're narrowing it to a gray, dull, a monomaniacal rut that you can only think along one line with. And so this is those are the two parts of the paragraph that I saw.
Right. Yeah. I'm so fascinated by anybody who looks at this life and goes, free will is not real. It's so.
I'm
It
glad
seems
you
like the
you
one
figured that
basic.
out.
It's like the one basic thing. How? Yeah. You argue yourself out of that one, and I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like sometimes the best answer to those kind of things is, I'm glad you've come to that conclusion, decided that for yourself.
Yeah, you came to that. Yeah, you decided to disbelieve that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because that's the big thing about if that's true, none of us have really come to that conclusion or the conclusions we're at. We have come to the conclusion that the chemicals that are in us have given us, and how can we trust what anybody says? And
Right.
we can't trust because trusting would be an act of the will, and everything. There's so many things that are the act of the will that we have to pretend aren't actually happening. It's
Right.
a bizarre game.
Yep.
Anyway,
Chesterton says, points out that often leads to
that's
quote
how you go
unquote
mad.
complete fatalism.
Yeah.
You stop caring, because if indeed I'm a pile of chemicals pursuing, with a bunch of chemical reactions, and you're a different pile of chemicals with a bunch of different chemical reactions, why indeed should we care about what the other pile of chemical reactions are? Like,
Right.
there's no reason to care. Yeah, there's no reason for that pile of chemicals to even care whether they convince us or not of one thing or another. It's just it leads to a complete fatalism. So agree.
Yeah, and apparently Darwin, he kind of started like towards the end of his life, no art on his walls, just kind of. My understanding was he kind of came kind of plain and lost the appreciation for beautiful things.
Lost the color. Well, and that's a fascinating topic, which is the connection between truth and beauty. There is a connection there, and once you stop thinking that truth is as expansive as it is, then I can see that the losing of the flavor of life. What I was going to say off of the previous paragraph was that you mentioned there's this effect that happens when people are take this line of materialism. Whoops, I lost my thought. Sorry, flipping through too many things. Well, maybe the music can jog me back into it.
There you go.
Little barbershop.
And don't forget to join us on Patreon. You get early episodes. Sometimes, usually, we release them in little batches. So you get, there's a community of other people like to read along. We have a document you can go through. It's cool.
Join us.
You're more evil than eugenics. I bet at the train station.
Just remember, he's singing this about his girl.
Yeah.
The suspicion, divorce is not just superstition. Your king probably doesn't even have a soul.
All right.
Awesome.
Chesterton's Gateway is produced by Ethan Nicolle and Michael Grumbine. It is based on the book of the same name, which can be found on that capitalist monstrosity Amazon.com. Send questions and comments to Chesterton's Gateway at GK.com. And join us on Patreon. Oh my gosh. Where only the
So many inside jokes.
Can be found. Goodbye.
Why? Because you are GK Chesterton.
Oh, that's
All right.
awesome.
Well, next time we'll see you guys and we'll finish it. This chapter anyway.
Take care.
Bye-bye.